What is up, y'all? I hope you're doing well. We're here for our weekly reflection message. Just sort of taking a look back at the week and the lessons that we've been working with and the energy that we've been working with this week, and then just recapping and revealing any final thoughts and wisdom and light we have on that last week. Or on this past week. So from the Radiant Sun Oracle, we have the Sun in Aquarius, which is idealism, followed by Venus in Virgo, which is discrimination. We have the Sun in Libra, which is harmony. And we have the Moon in Sagittarius, which is optimism. I'm really loving this. I mean, these are all really great cards, turning the tide in a positive direction. I will say that the discrimination card here, before we get into the reading, is not to do with prejudice discrimination, like negative discrimination, which leads to actions of prejudice, but this is the kind of discrimination that allows you to discern and organize and sort and put into categories and make good plans and execute plans and decipher, right? It's those Virgo powers combined with the beauty and fairness and justice and love of Venus. So let's get into it. So we have idealism here, and we have the Eight of Swords. First of all, before we go into the details of the cards, I'm going to pause this, let you guys listen to the audio, and then we're going to come right back. The collective is waking up. The critical mass is concentrating, and there is a shift in our collective consciousness and an increasing awareness. Our hearts are changing. Even some we would consider unlikely are beginning to hear the cries of their souls and take heed. Before the sin of Adam could look at anything in the garden and his feelings would clearly and truthfully tell him what was good and what was harmful. He could trust his feelings because he was fully connected to the consciousness of the Creator. After the fall, a veil was drawn between our consciousness and that of the Creator by our ego. The birth of our ego severed our unity with the Creator and created disharmony. The ego's agenda was counter to that of the Creator, and that of our soul's desire to reunite with the Creator by correcting the influence of the ego and reestablishing harmony. So the ego confused our feelings so that it was harder to distinguish bad from good, wrong from right, light from darkness. We are peeling back the ego's layers of confusion and seeing through the illusion of things that seemingly feel good but are bad for us, and understanding the value of doing good things that we avoid because of our fear of the perceived temporary discomfort they might cause. By breaking this cycle within ourselves, it is shifting the collective as a whole. We are waking up with greater discernment and conviction to name right and wrong and speak up for truth and justice. We are maintaining hope and optimism and faith as the Creator helps us tap into the collective human brilliance to oppose evil and work to relieve human suffering. This collective human brilliance is the light and inspiration of the Creator being channeled through the collective vessel. We can only channel the level of light we can attune to. As we transform our own darkness and negativity, we increase the capacity of the collective vessel to reveal God's light, goodness, and mercy into the world. There are so many solutions, cures, plans, and inventions ready to go. We just need to remove the blocks keeping them hidden in the unmanifest. Okay, So I do feel like there's been a pretty noticeable chunk of people in the collective for a while that have been awakened to, I would say, a higher level of consciousness. They've been doing the healing work, and so when these times of testing are coming up in the collective, a lot of people are overwhelmed by it all because they haven't done the work on themselves yet. And so all of this is triggering all of that stuff inside of them. And so now they're left to like do the work on themselves in the midst of all of the other things going on in the world and the planet. And so that has slowed down the collective because a lot of the people are so overwhelmed with what they have going on, triggered by everything going on from the outside, that they're shutting down to the outside. They feel overwhelmed and frozen, right? So this is that blindfold, and this is like surrounded by swords, like seeming impossible to escape this, but it's really illusion, right? So then we have those of us who have been doing the inner work for quite some time. And so during the midst of this collective tribulation, we are kind of like the anchors and the grounded people who can hold space for what's happening and bear witness, and also sort of be the stewards and way showers and helpers for other people who can't take it all in yet and who are gradually happening to take it in and gradually coming online and gradually finally like figuring it all out. So what's been happening is there's like this collective crystallization and condensing of people over the past few years who have been awakening, who have been doing the inner work, and who are now like seeing, okay, there's work to be done in the world. And so it's like we're becoming more greater vessels of sharing, right? Greater channels to channel light through. And even if that is sharing the information that you know, or being aware enough to like donate to causes that need help, or having the courage to call a congressman or sign a petition, right? Little things add up. And so even if you aren't like, say, a genius, our individual inner work on ourselves is making a greater vessel for the collective consciousness that is allowing for the people who do have particular genius to channel through solutions on behalf of mankind, right? So it's like we're raising the frequency of the planet collectively by doing the work and raising our own frequency on an individual level. This is the essence of the idea of restricting the desire to receive for the self alone and becoming a vessel for sharing. This is not just, oh, I hope I receive my great paycheck for myself, and oh, but if I become a vessel of sharing, then if I make more money, I can donate more money. That's true too. But this is also about a bigger picture here of I'm not even doing the healing work just for myself. Yes, I benefit and I get relief and I create inner peace and fulfillment, and then my life starts to go better. But also I'm doing this not only so I won't be an asshole out there in the world to others, but in a greater sense that I may not even perceive or get to experience the results of this. But I'm like adding into the spiritual blight bank account for all of us, right? It's like how we pay in taxes and we may not ever see the good that they do, that we know that collectively it's being distributed, right? So our inner work pays spiritual taxes in that get redistributed into the kingdom of the collective equally. And so good things, greater things, more brilliant ideas are coming through people who are willing to be channels to bring it in. So it's like we're collectively calling in this higher consciousness, this greater frequency of the light. It's not our own brilliance. It's not our own genius. It's the light of God always that's coming through. It's the merciful light of grace and miracles of the Creator, life force, vitality, genius, all of it. It's all the light of the Creator. The light of the Creator is the container of all the information, all the codes, everything in the universe. It's all in the light, right? And so just like a computer has processing capability and applications that allow you to activate the power of that computer, so too is the soul, right? So as we upgrade our soul, so to speak, we get new applications and greater processing capability, and we can channel that light in more pristine uses, right? And frequencies and levels. So here we are in this energy of the sun in Aquarius. So we have people, okay, and so the collective are awakening, and so more and more and more people are adding to this collective vibe, and so critical mass is forming. When a critical mass forms in the collective understanding or awareness and consciousness, it does this effect there's this thing called the 100th monkey effect. And they studied troops of monkeys. And if you taught a monkey a new behavior, it could maybe teach other monkeys one-on-one and teach those monkeys that behavior. But once 100 monkeys in that troop learned that behavior or that trick or whatever it was that you were teaching the monkeys, then all the monkeys in the troop suddenly gained that ability to do that behavior without having the direct influence of an educator or a trainer. Does that make sense? So the theory is that if a critical tipping point of the population of the planet, this was the same in the efficacy of the vaccines, right, during the pandemic. Once we had herd immunity, it was like we were better able to fight the virus, right? Same with consciousness. Once we get a critical mass of our population to a tipping point in our consciousness, it just creates a wave of awakening, even with people who you would never expect. You thought they were probably lost causes, just totally entrenched in like ignorance or darkness or whatever, doubled down in their like hard-heartedness, what have you. Even some of those people are beginning to awaken. So people are seeing through the manipulations and lies that have been given to us by the powers that be, and through the vessels that are the voices and the megaphones for the powers that be. And so even in countries where the propaganda was heavy and most of the population was under the belief of that collective agenda, even in those instances, those people are starting to get wind of the real truth, and they are standing up and speaking out, against what they've been told, against the world system and the agenda of the dark powers that be. I'm being mindful about the kind of words that I use as an experiment for the algorithm, because I think many times I unintentionally shadow ban myself because I just say these buzzwords, but I think we all know what we're talking about at this point. So idealism has us kind of waking up, and it's warming our hearts and it's bringing our hearts to life. But idealism can also kind of freeze us because it's kind of exaggerated. It's like idealism is sort of like on the exact opposite of fear in a way. Our idealism can keep us hopeful and optimistic and keep striving for a better future. But idealism can also cause comparison and make us have like evil eye or bad eye on the situation because we're comparing. Because maybe we've idealize something, believing in an illusion rather than something realistic. And so, okay, so for instance, I need to give examples of these two things. So, one positive way that idealism is keeping our hopes alive and keeping us from being totally frozen and overwhelmed, these small actions can make a big difference, right? So think about getting humanitarian aid into the country that needs it the most right now, and all of the barriers to getting that humanitarian effort in. Organizations have been trying, groups have been trying, renegade flotillas have been trying, and we feel overwhelmed. We feel powerless in the face of all that's happening. We feel like we're trying to do anything that we can, but nothing seems to be working. And then at the end of the day, people who were just like, fuck it, what have we got to lose? They filled plastic bottles full of grains and rice and like lentils and things like that, and they threw it in the sea, and the currents have taken those bottles, and now they are beginning to wash ashore where they are needed. And even though it's small, it's providing so much hope, and even just a small demonstration of the fact that evil can try to oppose good, but good will find a way. Good will find a way to prevail, but we have to be the channels of that good. The manna has manifested itself from the sky in times of history, but we haven't seen those kinds of miracles in our modern day in that way yet. However, we are expected to be the channels that deliver this goodness to the world. So we can't afford to be frozen and overwhelmed thinking that nothing that we do matters, because look at the miracle of even some of these bottles making it onto shore, intact, bringing people food. So we can't give up. However, in a negative sense, what idealism can do is, for instance, I realized today, it was like this striking revelation. Admittedly, I have not had the best father. Like, he's not emotionally available or very personable or involved. And it just doesn't seem like the effort that I make really makes much of a difference. And I've grown to accept that. But for a while, I was very victimized about that and very devastated over it. And something that drove the nail in, I think, even worse was and this is where we talk about the mother wound and the father wound, and like our idea of like the idea of archetypal father versus what a realistic father could be, or like the pedestal that we put archetypal mother on and realistically what a real mother could be. So we talk about Disney movies and princess movies because those are kind of easy targets of selling this like toxic fantasy and dressed up in a pretty package. But I think one of maybe the most toxic idealistic fantasies that I ever saw that really gave me more pain in the thinking that I thought it was pleasurable was the movie Father of the Bride, the remake. Wow. Already my dad was not going to do a good job, but having that kind of idealistic idea of what a father like could be and what a father-daughter relationship could look like, knowing that that was never going to be what me and my dad were going to be like, that comparison dressed up as an honest, an innocent desire from a girl of like, oh, I wish I had a fairy tale relationship with my dad, and one day I would have a fairy tale wedding in our house, and everything would be hunky-dory, and we'd play basketball together, and it would snow in the middle of the summer. Like, that kind of thing can hold you back because you're not seeing the truth and you're not accepting what is. And so the resistance of what is preventing the fulfillment. It's creating more suffering. Pain cannot be avoided, but suffering is many times a choice. And so in that instance, holding on to this idealized idea of my dad, or no, like dad could be, like in Father of the Bride, gave my dad an even greater chasm to leap over. Whereas if I could have started with just accepting who he was and trying to get the best I could out of that version of what dad would be for me, instead of comparing him to what I would consider or what I perceived as better dads. I hope that makes sense to you guys. All right, so moving on. So idealism, people are waking up and they're seeing, okay, there are some really big problems in the world that are being exacerbated by dark forces, and we're waking up and we don't want human suffering and the planet's suffering and animals suffering to continue. We want to bring goodness and end pain and suffering and death in the world. And so we, as a collective, are seeing with greater discernment, okay, this is we're clearly seeing right from wrong. So in the audio, we briefly talked about how in the beginning, in the Garden of Eden, the Garden of Eden was like in a realm that wasn't physically manifest in this material reality. It was like a dream realm. It was almost like Barbie world. And so the Garden of Eden, this is why the story of Adam and Eve can be true on an archetypal level, and it can be true in essence, but it doesn't have to physically explain the evolution of mankind on this planet. Does that make sense? Okay. So Adam and Eve. Adam is the original seed soul of all mankind. All of our souls came from Adam. So we all have a connection to that original sin in the garden that separated us from that 100% direct connection to God. So before the sin of Adam, before Adam ate the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, Adam could trust his feelings because he could go through the garden and his feelings would tell him the truth about if an animal or a plant were good for him or they were going to be harmful to him. And he wouldn't be sucked in by the novelty or excitement of something that was bad for him. He would have a clear feeling, ooh, bad, go get away from that. That is not going to be good for me. Things that were good, it would incite a good feeling. And so it was very clear and he could trust those feelings. After the fall, the birth of the ego, cracked the egg of the ego open, and the ego drew a veil between our conscious awareness and our connection to the Creator. And so we forgot that the wholeness and the truth of it all. And so in that drawing of the veil, our ego started to defile our consciousness with confusion and illusion and fear and scarcity and doubt and shame and all these threatened, scared, dark feelings that close us down and shut us off. And so in that birth of the ego and the drawing of the veil, our feelings became confusing. And so sometimes our feelings can tell us the truth and sometimes they can lead us falsely. So it becomes part of our self-mastery and part of our spiritual devotion to start peeling away those layers, which give us greater discernment and greater ability to practice awareness of examining our feelings. Are my feelings coming from the ego of the desire to receive for the self alone, the desire to receive instant gratification? Is this an ego-based feeling and thoughts sprung from the ego? Or is this feeling coming from my soul? Because my soul it has a desire to reharmonize with the Creator by returning back to that likeness of the Creator and shedding the illusions of the ego. So my soul is going to lead me to become a greater vessel of sharing and a greater vessel of goodness and a greater vessel of consciousness and divinity. My ego is going to lead me the other way. So we can examine, okay, we can have greater discernment in what's coming up. Is my ego leading me to this impulse, or is this a soul-driven impulse? We slow down, we learn how to pause and examine and ask, why is this in my movie? What is the message here? What do I need to take away from this? What is this moment telling me? At the same time, on the collective level, we are seeing, okay, this is bad, this is good, this is evil, this is not. We're sorting through the wheat and the chaff, the goats and the sheep, and we're like, okay, this is very clear that the light is becoming so much more polarized from the darkness, and it's becoming more easily to discern. At the same time, we're getting more clear and organized about how to combat this dark force. There are literally neighborhood watch groups that you can report the bad collective groups of people who are taking people, right? You can report that they are in the area, and then like troops of neighborhood people come out and basically get them to leave the area. They have prevented raids from happening, and they've protected people. So there's people figuring it out how to be peaceful within the bounds of peace and civility, and by simply uniting together in love and organization and brotherhood and unity in very passive, non-destructive, gentle, peaceful ways, we are overcoming evil bit by bit by bit through boycotts and through mindful redirection of our spending, through what we're supporting and what we're not supporting, what we're putting attention on and what we're not putting attention on. Things are shifting. There are countries that are about to declare this one place as its own sovereign state, who's been fighting for liberation for generations. So things are starting to shift, but it just feels like the bad guys have so much power. It does. It feels like they have so much power, but that is an illusion that we're busting through, and people are just making it happen anyway. And so that's where the Three of Pentacles is coming in. Three of Pentacles is like productive collaborations of like-minded individuals. A lot of times this is creative collaborations and people who see your services and they appreciate your mastery and they want to work with you. They want to become your clients. But I believe that this is the world coming together and unifying and saying no more. We, the people, are becoming one family. And we are taking care of one another, and we're learning how to work together in harmony and do this in organized ways that are highly effective. We're not wasting our energy going in every direction anymore. We are honing in and we're becoming more intentional and more potent in our collective unity and our loving intentions and actions. So our acts of sharing are really being supported by angels and the Creator and all of our spiritual assistance and guidance. So again, we have this harmony. So and the Hermit. So and that goes back to that idea of as we go inward and we bring those warring parts of ourselves into harmony, and we do the soul correction within, and we bring our consciousness and in alignment with our soul, and our actions are in alignment with our soul, then that inner healing and that inner enlightenment that we're tapping into is tapping into the collective. And so the more that we harmonize our heart, soul, mind, and strength being our actions and where we direct our physical body, how we do actions in the world, in the material world, the more we align those, the more we align with the Creator. The more we align with the Creator, the more that we're channeling that light into the world and expanding the collective vessel's capacity to bring that light through, right? So harmonizing. And then last but not least, we have optimism, and we have Two of Swords here. So again, this is going back to that idea. The Two of Swords is sometimes it's confusion. Sometimes it's not being able to see. See, we've got two people here. The people who are in sort of the negative feeling, that are being separated by the ego. This is the night. This is the dark. This is when things aren't clear. There's not certainty. I don't know the way forward, right? And the Two of Swords is like a stalemate, because the energy, whilst one wants to move forward, their fears are holding them back. Or they have like, I want to do this, but I equally don't want to do it, because I want to get into shape and I want to be healthy, but I don't want to go through the discomfort of cutting out foods that are bad for me, or exercising and doing, putting myself through a rigorous routine and then building discipline, right? Like the equal and opposing forces that are keeping someone stuck. Like we were saying, the confusion of after the sin of Adam, of not always being clear on when our feelings, like when our feelings are taking us towards the wrong direction or the right direction. Sometimes what shouldn't feel good feels good. And we're like, I was just following my feelings because it just felt so good. It felt so right. But we knew in our reason, a part of us knew that thing was not good for us, but we did it anyway because it felt good, right? Whereas there are many things that don't feel good, but we know are good for us, that we don't do because we don't want to go through the temporary discomfort to push ourselves to do them. So learning how to discern those feelings and do something about them, becoming decisive in following through on those good urges, on the optimism that it will make a difference. Financial example. It's hard to put money in savings, and it's hard to put money in interest earning ventures, because that is less money that you have to spend on your week to week needs, your daily needs, your wants, all of those things. So it does feel like you are making a sacrifice in the beginning, and it doesn't feel like there's a lot of payoff at first. But if you keep doing it over time, you'll see that the interest starts to grow. And then you hit a tipping point where that interest is so much that when it starts compounding, it starts making like a huge difference, and it starts growing your savings really quickly. But you don't see that at first. You just feel the discomfort and the unglamorous part and the undesirable part of having to reallocate your money in ways that you don't want. Like, you have to practice restriction with it. You have to be disciplined. You have to tell yourself no. That's no fun. But in the end, it leads to great treasure, right? Literally, great value. So we have to stay optimistic, and we have to make decisive actions based on that optimism, keeping us going. And we are transcending blind, foolish optimism, and we have wise, grounded optimism rooted in wisdom, experience, and discernment. All right, y'all. That is all for tonight. I hope you have a lovely rest of your weekend, and we will be back together tomorrow night for our Saturday night secret sermon. The Secret Teachings of Jesus episodes, where we delve into the Gnostic Gospels. And y'all, we are almost done with the Gospel of Philip. Philip's been my homeboy. I will miss him. But I'm excited about the next gospel we cover, and I think I have decided what we're going to do. So stay tuned. All right, y'all. Peace.